Hi, so I wanted to try a project using Replit, and I wanted to see if I could stretch the boundaries of what I've been doing before, which was just web design. And, you can make anything really. So what I decided to do was try to recreate a piece of software that had slowly become obsolete because, for whatever reason, it couldn't be maintained or it wasn't being maintained. So this is a piece of software that is not a mind mapping tool, it's a concept mapping tool. So it's much more open. It's made by Tufts University. I think there was just one coder on it. And I'm sure it's been a labor of love. It got to version 2. It's not been updated for 10 years. And it's put me in a bit of a quandary because I used it all the time as a digital whiteboard. I can't describe how useful it was to me. And I've been using it for a very long time. So maybe 15 years. It's really strange to think about it. I've got a lot of old Vue files which are slowly becoming harder and harder to open. Now, it's not completely dead as a project. I've not tried it on Windows. I run Linux machines. It works fine on Linux. Trying to get it to run on a Mac is becoming increasingly more difficult. And the reason is because it was actually made in Java, and it's been made for an old Java runtime, which macOS don't really want you to use for security reasons, I imagine. Okay, so this is Vue, and let's just look at the landing page here and see what we've got. There's about gallery features. They're fine, they're functional, and this was in fact updated a few years ago. Look, this is dated 2020, but we've not seen anything since then. The forums were active. They got mothballed and then shut down completely, so that is in fact a dead link. I think the fact's still there. There is some documentation. I don't know if the contact works. It was uploaded onto GitHub. I don't think the project was there initially. Maybe it even predated sort of use of GitHub for sharing in that way. Let's go to the gallery quickly. I'm not going to jump into any of these, but just so you can see them. This is a very typical use for me of Vue, of just getting a bunch of stuff down on a piece of paper and creating links. This is more complex. I would say this one here, so Vue's sort of secret superpower, if you will, is that you can create presentations that kind of zoom around the view pane, if you will. You can arbitrarily choose different objects and stack them up into a sort of a kind of slide deck, if you will. Now, there are some things about Vue that I'm not going to tackle. Playback pathways, these are different ways of working your way through the map, as it were, in terms of slides. So the slide order could be changed. I want that, but that's going to have to be a sort of an extra piece of functionality on top at a later date. That's like a stretch goal. Yeah, basic visualization, yes. The thing about pruning, I'm not going to do that for now. I'm not going to do the exploration tool, but I've implemented something different. We'll look at that in a minute. The interactive zoom, I think that's for later as well. So, and most importantly, and most interestingly perhaps, Vue organizes its the relationship between the objects in a very structured way. And there are file formats and standards for that, which at this point I can't recreate. But for me, just like getting the replacing the whiteboard functionality is a start. So to give you an idea of where I'm at, let's just pop over here. So this is a Replit project. I started working on this last Wednesday. Date is today, Wednesday, the 11th of June. So I worked all day Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, half of Saturday and half of Sunday. That's maybe 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 hours. And then I toyed with the edges of it on I think, Monday. And this is where we've got to. Okay. So, and in fact, in doing this, I've added functionality that Vue didn't have. And I've created something that really it's much more in tune with what I wanted Vue to be originally. And this includes some really deep, thoughtful, in my view, thoughtful pieces of functionality around what you can see inside a node here. So the first thing to observe is that the node more or less looks the same. You can create a node by double-clicking. That's functionality that we didn't have in Vue on the desktop. And you can drag a node into another node. That's classic, a sort of a classic thing that you do in Vue. You create nested things. Now, the drag out didn't work very well in Replit, so I've replaced it with a button to kind of get around the issue. And then these nested levels can go on and on. So that's a child of that one, and that's a child of that one. And we can see the first child has that same iconographic section down the side there to show that it's got children, but the ones further in don't, just so you can see slightly deeper, get rid of the UX, and so you can actually read more. Okay, so this is kind of fundamental and basic to what Vue does. You can draw lines. There we go. And if we just stop that, the UX for this is not terribly good at the moment, but I'm definitely going to work on it. Okay, so what else? Let me show you a node. This is where all the excitement, all the interesting stuff happens. So we have a pane on the right-hand side, which we can open, and that pane contains all the settings for this node. If you click onto the title, you can edit the title directly. And if you double-click on the node, it's going to close the attributes pane, and it's going to open the edit pane for the node. And this, if we just type in some new text here, this has a preview in the right-hand side. And most importantly, this is written in Pandoc-flavored markdown. And I chose Pandoc because academics find referencing very useful. And Pandoc markdown is good with referencing. So you can peppercorn the markdown with references, and then they'll be correctly referenced at the bottom of the page. So, okay, I've not done any deep testing on this, but this is really good. Now, okay, so we've got the preview here, but if I press Command and Enter, that will save it. Or if I try and exit it, that will give me a warning. And most importantly, I can show you that this little component here and all other nodes are in fact text files with YAML in front. And the YAML relates to the attributes pane here. But that does mean that we can actually, everything is human readable. And in fact, even the parent-child relationships are human readable. So we can see contains JavaScript fundamentals, and there they are. And of course, you don't need to see that. So the default is that you don't see that. And there we go. I'm going to cancel that. So we don't want to make any changes. And what else can we say? So in terms of basic functionality, you have a line. The line can be straight or curved. There's some different selections here for arrows. We've got line thickness, which rather nicely changes the size of the arrowheads as well. Let's do that. We can choose a custom line color. The default color is the sort of theme gray. We'll go into the themes in a minute, and you can go one lighter and one darker. That's worked out by the application itself. So that's quite nice. More basic functionality. As you'd expect, a click, and then another click will change your selection, but a click and then shift click, now you've selected two objects. And now we have a right-click menu here. We can group, and we can change the indexing, and we can delete. So that's good. We can also press Ctrl-G to do the same thing. So now these two are grouped. Now, if you have two objects that are identical and they're grouped, the attributes for them will be the same. Now, let's take the attribute for width here. Okay, so they're different, but they can be applied the same. The different testing strategies has a lower width than React Development, but if I grab the width, it will override both of them, and they'll become the same. And that will happen for all these attributes here. So, but then what happens if you click a different kind of object? Let's just go in, or in fact, let's just give you an idea that we can do a very classic drag and drop. And then it says mix selections. That's very good. So obviously, if it's mixed, I don't want to start changing attributes because it gets very messy very quickly. You don't know what you're doing. Okay, and then I'm going to show you some other aspect of this. It's possible, just as in Vue, to draw a line and drop it onto the canvas. And, oh, whoops. Stop drawing. It's a little bit of UX that I need to tidy up there. What I'd quite like to do is I'd quite like to replace or replicate the rapid drawing system that Vue had. I thought that was very effective. So here, if I click a line, I've asked it to indicate to me what kind of link it is. So that's a visual link type. And well, here's a thing to bug fix, which I will do later. Yep, that didn't quite work. Okay, so the link type is going to change to kind of organizational. So this is visual. It doesn't really mean anything, but a link that links between one node and another node is creates hierarchy, or at least some kind of organizational structure. And at some point, we're going to use that link type to connect the dots between these two nodes here. And that will allow us to output the file in the correct kind of hierarchical manner. So I want to show you a couple of things left, really, that are really quite cool. And that is, because we have used Markdown for everything here, we have detached the way it looks from its content. And that gives us a lot of power and control. I think that's one of the great benefits of using Markdown for anything. So if we look at the top, I've implemented some stuff for that. Let's firstly look at the color schemes. There are, in fact, 4 color schemes. This one's called Dusk. We're going to go around to Dark. And then there's a solarized theme and a white theme. And we're going to take one of these in turn. I'm going to show you these 2 options here. So the first option is custom color. Now it is possible to choose custom colors for any of your nodes. And if you turn on the custom color, it will appear, but you can go back to the theme default. The other thing, which is rather cool, and I don't know if it's going to be useful to anyone, but I certainly would have found it useful if it had existed in Vue, is that there is an option to colorize by something that I've called weight. And so how this works is that if I choose a couple of nodes here, you can see that the color of the node deviates from, let's just ungroup these. The color of the node deviates from the theme default by a small graduation for each weight increase. So if you're being structured about the way that you create your nodes, you can actually auto-colorize the entire map in a way that's really visually useful to you. The other thing that I've been able to do here is create a zoom for the text itself, which is, oh yeah, you can see a little bit of UX break there, but yeah. So this is simply changing the font size. And then because again we've got that detachment of the content, the text in Pandoc Markdown and how it looks, we can change to different themes of the font. So this is sans serif serif. We've got the reverse of that, serif sans serif. And we've got all serif. We've got a custom theme and the default theme, which is all serif. And if we go into settings, we can see that. So let's just check the font themes. We can just grab any one of these and change the font theme. Reset to defaults. And in the color themes, we've got the primary switcher here, light, dark, solarized, dusk. But for each one, we can choose a theme. So if we grab Groovebox Dark there, and then pop over to here, we can see, yep, there it is. So that's perfect. That's all that I want to show you for now, because that's all there is. As you can tell, the system hasn't been sort of bug fixed yet. There are definitely some aspects that need testing and need fixing, but it's just, I'm kind of blown away. This is remarkable. This will go in a direction that I will find more useful than Vue was originally. And I'm just going to try and add more and more things. And to give you an idea of costs, I've probably spent somewhere around about £80 plus the monthly charge of 20, give or take, to get this far. Now that sounds a lot. If I was to, spend that money on a piece of software, that sounds a lot. But when you consider if I hired a developer to get even close to this, I would have spent just an order of magnitude more. So there it is. Just have a go, get building. It's amazing.